I don't think I've ever in my entire time on BookTube set up a video with like a good angle. I think you've all just sort of come to expect this of me though, or at least that's what you should expect. Not professional quality of things that are always most definitely bad. It's fine. This is a November TBR. We're 2 weeks into November already, and trust me, no one is aware of how late this video is than me. Probably because you guys didn't even realize I was doing a November TBR. But I am. Here we are. I haven't had lunch today. I need to film this video before I do anything else, so it'll be an interesting video for me to edit and watch multiple times before I upload it. Yes? Okay, alright. This is what I'm reading in November. November is Indigathon, which is hosted by Michelle from Thor Wants Another Letter and Brody from Et Brody. They're both great creators. I love them both. I'll have links to their stuff in the description. You should all go and follow them. I don't know why I had my eyes closed, but I did. I'm not doing it again. Not only that, November is Nonfiction November, which is a thing that I was more intrigued in taking a part in when I didn't think that I had a lot of things due. That wasn't a correct sentence, but it's fine. Basically, I was keen on Nonfiction November until I realized that I had a lot of my assessments due in the first 2 weeks of November, and I was like, maybe not. So I think I found a way to work the spirit of Nonfiction November into my Indigathon portion of this TBR. That's right, there are portions of this TBR, and you may be thinking, Henry, there are 2 weeks left in November. How are you gonna read a TBR with different sections? You can barely read 3 books in a month, and I'm thinking the same thing. The first book on this list is Thud by Terry Pratchett. If you're new here, you probably don't realize this. My account started as a Discworld account. I really like Terry Pratchett and I really like the Discworld books. And for a while, like, I was consistently uploading and reading Discworld books and videos about the Discworld books, but I'm not anymore. I kind of fell off that in like May. Yeah, was the last time I read a Discworld book. So Thud is the next book in the City Watch sub-series of Discworld, and I'm very intrigued by it. I'm 60 pages in. It's very interesting. I think it's so funny to be reading this book, but then also have a friend who's reading one of the really early Discworld books, and just to see like how different Terry Pratchett's writing style is. It's so funny. Thud by Terry Pratchett. I'm not going to describe it for you because if you don't know about Discworld, it's not going to be very interesting. And if you do know about Discworld, you probably know what this book is about anyway. So, Thud by Terry Pratchett. I feel like I should yell it. I was gonna yell the title, but my voice is already sore. I'm not gonna make it more sore throughout it, and since this is the first book, I'd have to I'm not going to. So I'm currently reading that. The next book I'm gonna pick up is Heartbeat Braves, which is the group book for Indigathon. I want to read the group book before I read any of my other books, just because Heartbeat Braves is this like Native American romance. I'm very interested in reading that. I don't read a lot of heterosexual romance, so it'll be interesting to see what I think of a heterosexual romance, you know? I'm excited about it. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good fun. And also, it's part of Indigathon, which is always fun. And the next 2 books that I'll be reading for Indigathon are by Indigenous Australian authors, because that's most of the Indigenous literature that I own is by Indigenous Australian authors. So, sorry. This video is also going to go up at the end of NAIDOC Week. I will put some resources and some links towards stuff about NAIDOC Week in the description if you don't know about NAIDOC Week. NAIDOC Week is a time when we celebrate Indigenous Australian cultures and all that. It's good fun. I like NAIDOC Week, and you should too. The first book that I plan to read after Heartbeat Braves is Songs That Sound Like Blood by Jared Thomas. This is an FF romance. It is set in the north of Australia. It follows Roxy, who wants to become a musician in a small town, and she's trying to make it, and she meets this music journalist, and they kind of have like a bit of a romance. I'm excited about it. It's kind of on like the more new adult side of young adult as far as I'm aware, so I'll be interested to read that as well, because the last new adult book that I read, To the Flame by A.E. Ross, and I really liked that. So I think I'll like this as well. Also, I don't have enough FF romance on my read shelf, so I'm excited to add this to my books I've read shelf. And then the last book that I'm going to be reading for Brody and Michelle's Indigathon is Dark Emu by Bruce Pascoe. This is the book that ties in with Nonfiction November. Bruce Pascoe has written Dark Emu as a response to the kind of widespread idea in white Australia that pre-colonial Indigenous Australians were not as civilized as like the European settlers. Bruce Pascoe has set out to like debunk that myth and has done so because it's won all these awards. I always find that when I read non-fiction that I always tend to read it quite fast, although I don't do it a lot. I've read more non-fiction this year than I have like in my life, which is like 3 books. Yeah, I'm very interested to read this, not only because it's part of Indigathon, but it also ties into Nonfiction November. I might not get to these next 2 books because I just might run out of time. I think they're both going to be very quick reads because when I read the first books in their series, they were quite quick reads. The first book is Rogue by AJ Betts. This is the sequel to Hive in the Vault duology. I read Hive way back in 2019, like at the start of 2019. This book came out in June of 2019, and I still haven't read it. And I will, because I want to, and the cover is very pretty. I don't know if you're picking it up, but it's like this really nice like foil thing. The green's so pretty. Look at that spine. It's a good looking book. I really like it. Hive was a really interesting young adult dystopian. It's an Australian book. It's set entirely underwater. It's really interesting, and the people who live there don't know that that there is this whole other world on the surface. It's so interesting. It's about beekeeping. It's great. I really like Hayley as a protagonist. She's very interesting. The cliffhanger of the first book like leaves this book open to do pretty much anything. I have no idea what to expect going into the second book, so I'm very excited to get to this. I think it'll be really interesting. And then the next Australian sequel that I'm going to be reading this month, hopefully, is Rebel Gods by Will Kostakis. I mentioned Rebel Gods in my not last video, the video before that, where I talked about books that I think readers who aren't out as LGBTQ+ people should read. First book, Monuments, was really good. It's kind of like an Australian Percy Jackson, if that makes sense. There are these gods who are awakening and these gods coming from another dimension. There are supernatural powers in these books, and I thought the first one was kind of rushed, so I'm interested to see what's going to happen in this second book, granted that it's like significantly thinner than the first book. I don't really know what to expect. It's going to be an interesting one. This book is also gay. There's an Indigenous Australian love interest in this book. It's just going to be a good time. I'm excited about it. I know I haven't talked enough about like any of these books for you to be like, okay, I know what Henry's reading. I would have hoped to have spoken with a little more coherence in this video, but we don't always get what we want. So these are all the books that I'll be reading in November. If you've read any of these books, please let me know in the comments down below. Oh, also Heartbeat Braves. I don't own it, but Heartbeat Braves, I'm reading that as well. If you've read any of these books, please let me know in the comments down below. I'll be very interested to chat with you about them. And if you want to read any of these books, if any of these books sound interesting to you, also let me know that, because apart from Thud and Heartbeat Braves, this is all Australian literature. I'm obviously very passionate about Australian literature, so please let me know. I would love to hype these books up a bit more for you so that you actually, you know, go out and read them. And yeah, I think that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end of this video. I'll be surprised if anyone actually did. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you again next week with a new one. Bye!